Hello, people. I'm Si, and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. We've got podcasts and series on all sorts of subjects. We've got series on mental health and sport, conspiracy theories, film, TV, football, wrestling, serial killers, music, and a whole lot more. We release 3 shows a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, with the Wednesday show being the Andy Campbell Championship show with former Premier League striker Andy Campbell and myself breaking down the results and the news from the Sky Bet Championship every week. Plus, Andy answers your questions. You can send those questions and give us a follow whilst you're there by going to Twitter at ACEcast_nation or Facebook.com/ACEcastNation. All our shows are available in video format at YouTube.com/AcePodcastNation or audio download at all the usual platforms, captures, and apps. So I've been looking forward to speaking to my guest today since I messaged him at the start of the week. As I always enjoy the shows where we talk about all sorts of different things and go off on wild tangents. So you may know
intended.
And you may know my guest as a referee in UK wrestling promotions, or you may have seen him in wrestling promotions, Rev Pro, Progress, and many others. He's also a level 8 football referee. I'm very pleased to welcome Aaren Wilde to the show. Welcome, Aaren. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Hey, no worries. It's fine. I'm very happy to do stuff like this. Like you said, I think it sort of epitomizes me very well where you go off on a tangent about this, that, and the other, as we did before we even started recording this. So, I'm 100% in agreement with that.
Yeah, we could have just done a podcast before the podcast.
Yeah, no. Hey, it works for WWE. Maybe you could do pre-show podcasts, stream that content, for that maximum hashtag content creation.
Yeah,
on other
a new
platforms.
Thing. I'll just create the pre-show podcast.
It's a whole new subgenre. No one's tapped into it yet. There you go. Exclusive idea.
That's it. Now gonna have to trademark that straight away. Yeah. So it's been a stressful few weeks for you, which to say the least. But we'll get into that a bit later on. But first, let's get to know you a little bit before we jump into all that stuff. So, what's your story, dude? Where you from? What you do?
Oh God.
I don't even know what you do. Where are you from? And what's your background, shall we say?
Yeah, it's that terrifying question where someone's like, "Who are you?" and you just sort of have that blank moment of existential dread where you're like, "What am I? Who will I be?" I'm 21. I was born in Merseyside, lived there for about 10 years, moved to Lancashire with parents, moved to uni when I was 18 in Brighton, where I was there for 3 years, and now back in the north, back in the mothership with my people, my family, my 3 doggos, who I think I'm mainly here for the dogs, let's be real about it. My sort of story, I suppose, and for wrestling in some ways would be quite odd in some ways. I never watched wrestling until I was 12. I'd literally never even heard of it. I didn't know what it was, and I literally couldn't sleep one night. Stumbled downstairs to my dad and was like, I can't sleep, and we just ended up turning on Sky Sports, and it was 2 a.m. because I was for some reason he was up, God knows why.
Watching the rest.
Yeah, well, we just literally turned on Sky Sports, and I remember it because it was, I want to say it's Over the Limit 2010, because the match that I remember watching was Cena Batista in Last Man Standing, and it was the finish where, do you know what? I really enjoyed it. That period of WWE retrospectively gets a lot of flack, but it was the finish where Cena duct tapes the feet of Batista behind the ring post.
Yeah,
to beat him for the 10 count, and I think it's the one then he does the AA off the car or something like that, to sort of end it all off. And then I think that's when Batista literally the next night comes out and goes I retire and all that, and he buggers off for a few years. So yeah, after that, within 6 months I was training because we'd found me and my dad had looked online and found a training school because I was very sort of inquisitive and nosy. I was just nosy, and I wanted to sort of know the bit behind how it all worked, because to me it was a big magic trick. How are these people doing this 200 days a year and not crippled within a year? How are they still walking? and that sort of illusion fascinated me. So yeah, and then I mean, I've been involved in wrestling in some form or another for nearly 9 years now, maybe. I had a bit of a break when I got an injury from rugby when I was 16, so I had about a year off then. But other than that, I've been involved in wrestling in some form, whether that was originally... Whoop, there goes my camera. Whether that was originally with Future Shock Wrestling, actually, I think it was, where I did like graphics and videography work and like media production and like did all the stage setups, ran the tech on the day and stuff like that, to wrestled on a couple of student shows very poorly. And then refereeing for sort of the last sort of 3 to 4 years, maybe. I can never really figure out when I started refereeing. It's sort of a bit of a blur. But yeah, that's sort of my story, I guess.
That's really cool though, that you were able to like kind of get into it from such a young age, because obviously I think particularly in the UK, or certainly when I was like younger, there wasn't the opportunities that there is now to get into wrestling. Like I never would have been big enough anyway, because I'm really short. But like,
same, don't worry.
I still would have, if I was like my son's age now. So my oldest son's 14. He's like 6 foot. If I was him, I'd be like, I'd want to get into it now, and I'd be trying to look for like training schools and camps and stuff. But those sorts of opportunities were very, very sparse when I was younger, which is obviously a fair few years ago now.
It's not that long at all, I'm sure. But the thing is, as well with it, like, what's amazing to me is like, so I started when I was 12, which would have been, work this out, maybe like 2011, 2012-ish. And even in that time, it wasn't like, there wasn't loads of training schools. Like the closest ones to me, were where I went to, which was XWA, at the time, XWA Morecambe. There was Future Shock and GPW, who trained in Manchester. And then your sort of closest ones that I was aware of at the time, you're talking like NGW in Hull, Northeast way.
Fair way,
yeah, but whereas now, and it's not even that long later, really, like I could go, so currently I'm in Blackpool, and like there's Preston City Wrestling in Preston, ironically. There's Manchester, there's like 4 different training schools, Manchester Pro Wrestling Academy, which was formerly, I believe, affiliated with Future Shock, but the trainer was anyway, which is Xander Cooper, who's one of the best trainers around as well. There's GPW, there's, Liverpool, where you've got Fighting Spirit with James Drake and Zach Gibson. And these are all within an hour. Like, you've got 3, 4, 5 different training schools all within an hour, which is like, it's bonkers to me. Like, and that's an hour of public transport as well. That's not even like, we drive in a car and go like for 70 miles. Like, this is, wrestling itself for people who want to get into it in whatever form is now more accessible than ever, which is brilliant. Wrestling is also more accessible than ever, which brings everyone into it who may also have ulterior motives towards their time in wrestling. That part isn't necessarily as good, but it's one of those things. And I think like as time passes, we're getting a lot better at weeding them out and not letting them get any sort of opportunities in there, slowly but surely. But
there's been a few sort of kind of cases of what should we say, unsavory people over the years, and like you are right, they do tend to get weeded out. There was even a guy within wrestling media, I've forgotten his name now, it'll come to me maybe later. He'd like a moment. Yeah, he was kind of like a well sort of respected wrestling kind of journalist and podcaster and writer. He'd written for some big sites and whatnot. And then all of a sudden it turned out that he was not a good person, and it kind of all, as it does so often with social media, things happen very fast. Well, as you found out recently, things happen and travel very fast. And if something kind of catches on, or in this person's case, wasn't very pleasant, before you know it, the whole world knows. And but
that is also the benefit and detriment of social media. Like, the benefit is like, obviously, it doesn't just mean that now someone who's trained at a London school can suddenly just move to Birmingham and start training, and no one really knows anything about them. it means that now, like, literally all of wrestling goes, you are a so and so, and you're not allowed to be in this business because you are a detriment to it or a liability to the people involved in it. So it's I mean, God, social media itself over the last sort of week or two for me as well has been a whirlwind, like, which I'm sure we'll get into. But like,
I can only imagine you must, especially over the weekend, you must have been having like just notification after notification after notification.
Well, to be fair, I did literally, like, referring to the statement I made, like, what, as of recording, it was 2 weeks ago from the event, so like maybe just over a week ago now. I think it's like the Thursday maybe I put out the statement. Like, I literally tweeted, like, it was like, I think it was like 6 tweets, maybe 7, because I think I put another one out that then got deleted because it was to do with pay. And I literally was like, I just didn't want to deal with anything wrestling at that point. I was so, like, in so much pain and so annoyed by, like, the whole culture behind wrestling at that point and the backstage politics of it. I was just like, do you know what? F this. Like, I just logged out and was like, I can't be bothered dealing with this. And then I got a message from one of my friends about 2 hours later being like, what have you done? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I've literally just been sat here with my dogs. And they were like, no, have you seen your Twitter? And I was like, no, why? I literally logged out of it like 2 hours ago. And they were like, yeah, you might have started something here. And then progressively through the night, through the day and then the night, they sort of showed me that I potentially caused a bit of a civil unrest across Twitter worldwide, which was not in any form my intention, but here we are.
Let's be honest, it wasn't your fault. That's true. Well, we'll get into that a bit later.
Yeah, probably jumping ahead of myself.
Yeah, no, that's right. We said this would happen, that we just go from tangent to tangent to tangent, so it's all good. When I first messaged you and we were sort of messaging back and forth, you had mentioned you've got ADHD. Was it ADHD or ADD?
I think it's ADHD because it's the hyperactivity as well. And as attention. It's why I keep looking down. Now, I promise you, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm literally doodling at the same time to try and keep my brain from, like, going bonkers. I mean, I always sort of guessed I had some form of, like, stupid thing wrong with me, the way I sort of put it in my head. Not that it is anything wrong with anyone. It's just a sort of personality quirk and trait. But it was just one of those things where you sort of like, meh, maybe it's this, maybe I'm just, you know, I mean, what? It's that thing that sometimes people just goes like to, well, you need to sit down and pay attention. It's like, it's not that I don't want to. I literally am just like, my brain's bouncing around 10 different things at the same time.
Wired a bit different.
Yeah, and I really do like the expression sort of wired different. And, you know, I think we went through sort of a phase, like, I think societally, like maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, where it was very much like, oh, well, everyone's got depression, everyone's got anxiety, everyone's got this and this and this. And it was like said as a derogatory thing where, like, well, not everyone surely can have depression. And it's like, well, actually, you know, if the world's a bit horrible, people can, like, you know, people are, you know, feeling really bad and it can get to that point where it is, you know, like a depression, or people can have so many anxieties. And it's like, you know, it's like, oh, not everyone can have social anxieties. It's like, yes, because it manifests itself in so many different ways, or it can be, you know, there isn't like a, this is what it is, it's ding, 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 and that's all it can be. The sort of, I don't want to say spectrum because that's a whole different ball game, but like, it's like an umbrella term for so many things within that sort of condensement, and then you have them all, and it's like one of the things that, you know, is quite a sort of generically, I hate like being a stereotype, but like it's stereotypically a boomer generation thing to say, like, well, you know, back in my day we just got on with it. And it's like, well, yeah, but also a lot of people tried to kill themselves and weren't very happy with their lives. Doesn't make it okay.
No.
So, like,
back then people didn't understand the way the mind works as well as they do now. Like science and things progress. One of my favorite quotes that I see on Twitter, not so much these days, but like certainly a few years ago, there was still people saying it. It's like if you saw like a Premier League footballer or a movie star kind of speak about having some issues with depression or anxiety, it would kind of be like, well, what have they got to be depressed about? They've got millions in the banks and this lovely, beautiful
Oh yeah,
house and kids, and it's like you're kind of not getting it or understanding that it can happen to anyone for any reason.
Yeah, there was so much ignorance around it, wasn't there? Like it was insane, and it really is what you're saying. Like, it's like, well, what do you have to be anxious about or nervous about? Well, actually, quite a bit, and it's like, you know, it doesn't, and I think half of it as well is like the idea that most of the time it's not the people involved in it as well know that it's not necessarily a rational thought. Like, you know, like a lot of sort of depressive thoughts and that come down to, well, not a lot, that's not the right way of putting it, but like I know in my experience a lot of depressive thoughts come from like self-doubt and sort of self-depreciation and this sort of lack of therefore of belief in yourself. And it's like, yeah, like when I'm in a rational state of mind, I know that's not a rational thought to have, but the issue is the depression means that I'm not in a rational state of mind, and what might be seen as something that's like, well, you're just being stupid, isn't necessarily what someone wants to hear in that phase. You need to just have that compassion to go, well, actually, no, you know, that's not rational, but let's explore that, because that's the only way that you're going to bring yourself out of it. And it's sort of being more honest with the people around you and just sort of saying to them, it's like, then what's the word I'm looking for? It's like people started to sort of, I think from what we were saying before about like a couple of years ago when it was like quite ignorant, to people started to get more savvy to the fact that a mental illness isn't necessarily the person, it's an illness, similar to how a broken bone isn't due to the person, it's just a physical side effect, whereas a mental illness is just a mental side effect of an illness. That doesn't make any sense, but like it's this idea that basically the mental illness is not the person, it's just something that's affecting that person, similar to how a broken leg is not the person is not defined by their broken leg, it is an effect, it is something that you then put in additional sort of not barriers, the opposite of barriers, helps to solve that. That was a complete tangent, and I did try and make that succinct as I could, but it definitely was not. My bad.
No, that's fine. It's all good. So how old were you when you sort of got diagnosed with ADHD?
Really late. Last year or two. Like 19, 20. Yeah, like I was always like, quite luckily, I was quite good in school. Like I got quite good grades. I was quite good, a bit of a teacher's pet, I guess. So I never really got a bit of extra. And went to primary school in Merseyside. There was a lot of issues there. So like, sort of, I think mine sort of were like, just he's a bit mental, but you know, a bit weird, a bit of a weird kid, I suppose. Sort of a term that's followed me my entire life, but there we go. So yeah, it was only like a couple of years ago. I was just generally seeing a therapist and counsellor and chatting to them about my life and everything in the universe. And they were like, "Have you ever had like this diagnosis?" And I was like, "Nope." And they were like, "I'd like it if you went and saw someone about it and just sort of check, because it might help you sort of understand yourself a bit more." And I was like, "Sure." Went ahead, and yeah, your boy got ADHD. I was like, "Well, that's." And then retrospectively, and I think with any sort of mental illness, you sort of look back and you go, oh, because you look back at certain events and you're like, that was this was this side effect or trait of the mental illness. Yeah. Or I don't know if ADHD technically is a mental illness, is it? I don't know. It's technically mental illness.
Disorder, yeah. I think, isn't it?
That's it, disorder, yeah.
It's like, it is technically a mental health illness. But so like, so my oldest son, he's got ADHD. He's 14. Like I said, he got diagnosed a couple of years ago. So like, he's really lucky in that his school are pretty good now with like giving him support. And I think the support he had in place for the last couple of years, he's barely using in terms of like going to they got like a base and they can go. But I think he's got to the point now where he can kind of manage himself and he can.
That self-regulation, yeah.
Whereas in the first couple of years after finding out, he did need that support. And when I look back to my time in school, I was not a good kid in school, particularly in the latter years of high school.
Yeah.
And I often do wonder, I think, I think in today's day and age, I think I would get diagnosed as having ADHD.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and then you wonder kind of, well, what would have happened if I'd have had this in place, or this support, or this, or if I was seeing someone about that. But it's it's difficult to say. But at least I think these days, with all mental health, things are getting better.
Yeah, they're nowhere near
Attitudes are
perfect, but they're
improving.
getting better.
Yeah, there's still things to work with, and I think there's still progress to be made. But God, when I compare it to like 10 years ago, even,
Yeah,
people's attitudes towards mental health generally have improved massively.
Well, to me as well, like you say that, like 10 years ago, so that's what, 2009. So I started high school in 2009, and I remember, like, vividly for high school, like, especially the first couple of years, like, and I mean, I'm not saying this has changed because I don't know, because I haven't been in high school since I was in one myself, but, like, I noticed it noticeably got better over the 5 years I was there. Like, when I started high school in 2009, a lot of sort of, not slurs, maybe not, that's maybe too extreme of it to say, but, like, disses, like, it's like, that thing where it's like kids are like, oh, you're this, you're the other, you like, basically just being like, you suck. But they'll use, well, the common one is you're gay. That's always a fun one that high school students want to throw about. That didn't totally lead me to, like, horrific trauma that then resulted in me coming out like 4 years later than I probably should have. But, like, that's a whole different ball game. But, like, stuff that they use is like, I vividly remember, like, people going like, you're a tranny, which obviously at the time I had no idea what it was, but, like, things like that which can affect people's mental health massively, especially in, like, the trans community. Like, for anyone who doesn't know, I am, like, an openly gay man, so, like, queer sort of culture and stuff like that is very sort of high on my agenda, and especially at the minute with trans rights and things like that, it's very much like a big thing for me, hence why that's the sort of stuff that came to my brain. But things like, they'd be like, oh, you're a weirdo because you have this in your brain, or, oh, you go and see someone to talk to them, that must mean that you're this. They were horrible, but, like, and it's like going from that to now in the big wide world, and it's less common. It's not uncommon, sadly, but it's less common than maybe it was, like you said, like 10 years ago. And I think that shift in society has started, and fingers crossed, it's one of those things that, like, it's just taking a bit to sort of get rolling, but when it does, that snowball effect just keeps going until it, absorbs every disgraceful person who thinks it's okay to joke about it and actually realizes that it's not a thing, and then everyone's happy and the world has rainbows and bunnies in it and Donald Trump is not in power.
Soon, hopefully. I think the thing is, like, we go back to what we were saying about social media, there's really good aspects to it.
Yeah.
There is a lot of bad side to it, and like, if you happen to click on a certain tweet, you can very quickly be, like, reading some really nasty, whether it's like trolling or abuse or whatever it can be, just from people who, it could be a celebrity or it could just be a person who's said their opinion on a subject, and people just jump on in droves.
Even they say things in
give
facts.
The opinion,
that's the one that baffles me.
Thing.
Like, like, people literally state facts and they get abuse for it. It's like, no, that's literally a fact. There is empirical evidence to prove it, and it's like, no. I mean, the one that comes to my brain is like climate change in America. It's like, not prove it. It's like, yes, it literally is a proven fact. You absolute imbecile.
One of my favorite subjects, because we do a show on conspiracy theories, which is like, it's like a kind of
conspiracy theories.
It's like a light-hearted show, because we do, like, a lot of shows. We've done a load on, like, ADHD, and we've done some on wrestling and films and TV and all this different stuff. And then
whole plethora of things.
Yeah, like,
I just wanted to get my word of the day in there.
That's all good. It's always good for new words. The conspiracy theory one is just like, it's basically me and my mates just talking about conspiracy theories and just going on wild tangents all about all sorts. We'll start on one, which is supposed to be like the focus of the show.
Yeah.
And then just we end up talking about a different one.
Yeah.
Always fun. They seem to be they're one of our most popular series, which is mad to me because I have some quite cool guests and stuff on the show. And then one of the more popular ones is just me and my mate talking about conspiracy theories.
The world is a brilliant and
It's just
baffling
the world.
place.
Indeed. So the last thing I was going to say on ADHD as well is like particularly with my kids, I've like tried to say as well. I don't know if you're familiar with fightful.com. A little plug for them because they're awesome. But
Not fully.
so they're like a wrestling MMA like site. Their managing editor, Sean Ross Sapp, who does podcasts and runs the site. Basically, he's got ADHD, and he's when I've spoken to him about it, he says like it helps him with his job because of the time zones in America, and when like WWE or AEW will drop their news, it's a slightly different time zone.
Of course,
His not being able to sleep at like regular times because of his ADHD actually benefits him with his job because he needs to have a lot of energy. He needs to have hyperfocus. Hyperfocus is something which I think generally people assume that ADHD is like people can't concentrate, they're hyperactive, but actually hyperfocus, which is we had a show on that as well. But like that's something which was new to me. I didn't know about it. And we had a mental health support worker, Jacob, who's got ADHD from Bristol, and he has to take breaks from social media and stuff like that because when he's doing a project with his work, he gets so focused on it that it just takes away from everything around him. And that's an aspect to ADHD which I didn't know about, and I've learned through these podcasts basically.
And I think like hyperfocus is definitely like a massive thing that I've had as well. Like literally what you're saying about what Jacob had. Also realizing that I speak very fast, that's an ADHD thing, I think. Yeah. So if I am going very fast at any point, please tell me to slow down because I did it without realizing. The hyperfocus aspect, like you're saying with Jacob, where he has to take actual breaks. I found that because I've literally just come back from university like a couple of months ago. I did 3 years there, like essays, all the shenanigans and everything. Like, and there were times where like literally I'd be so fixated on something. You'd go like 8, 9, 10 hours and I just didn't realize. And like the reason I like figured out what it was I was like, is this a normal thing? And then when I eventually got my diagnosis, I was kind of like, oh, that's what it is. But it was like it started, and it's just really random, but it started from like, you know, when you see like people like sarcastically posting like, oh, I don't know how people forget to eat. I will always eat. And I was kind of like, yeah, no, same, to be fair. But then I was like, wait. And then like the next day I'd be like, just going to do a bit on my essay. 8 hours later, have forgotten to like drink, eat, have any basic like hygiene or care for myself, and have just been sat at my desk like sprawling through all this stuff. And it's hyperfocus, and I sort of call it in my own brain. For me, it's like a hyperfixation. One of my favorite things my dad has ever said to me is like, if he had to describe me, he'd say I was like a horse with blinkers on. Because that is the best way I can sort of explain like a hyperfixation or a hyperfocus to anyone who's not sort of got that experience themselves. It feels like if you're the horse and you've got your blinkers on, and it's like you see this like end goal, and it's just sort of like that is the only thing that matters, and there is nothing else, and this must be what I focus on. And it's, you know, it's like it's a benefit and a detriment at the same time, like I said, and I'm sure you talked about that on the hyperfocus stuff. But it is that thing that like I don't think anyone really, I didn't for ages, and I had the bloody mental illness, was like, oh, this is actually a cool thing. Like when you sort of balance pros and cons, it's like, yeah, I might sort of not sleep for many hours because I can't switch off. But also, if I need to focus on this really important project, I can sometimes focus on that for way longer than I probably should be able to.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So it's kind of, I think part of it is accepting, like obviously I haven't got ADHD myself, but I've obviously dealt with it with my son, and I've spoken to lots of people who've got it, I spoke to like a couple of doctors who came on, and different charities and different things like that, to try and get like as much information and just get to grips with it, not just for my son, but for me to have a better understanding of it. And one of the things which seems to be a reoccurring thing for the people who do suffer with it is like accepting that your brain works slightly different, and there will be periods where you can't concentrate, or you're fidgeting, or you can't sit still, or you're hyperactive, or you have got this fixation on doing something.
Yeah.
And just trying to manage it in a healthy way so that, you know, when you do kind of fixate on something, you try and work out a way to pull yourself away and eat or drink.
No, 100%. I think it is that, like,
things.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said about, like, doing it in a healthy way as well. Like I agree. Like, I think a lot of people focus, like, with sort of many different sort of forms of mental illness and stuff like that and conditions. Especially at first, will find it hard to sort of accept it because it's, you know, especially within the education system, it's not widely presented yet, and it's still at sort of discretion of schools to teach sort of mental health in any format, let alone like an in-depth sort of this is what happens and this is okay. It's sort of on the onus of, you know, whatever they want to do, and if they're very anti it, or if you've got one headmaster or headmistress who's like, no, we are not this. How dare you suggest that this could be true? No, lost it. Don't know where I was going with that. Sorry, my brain is gone.
Sorry, it's like you've got like some teachers around the country don't believe that it's a real thing, and it's kind of like, how can you expect the kids in that teacher's school to get the correct support if they've got ADHD or ADD or autism or, you know, whatever it may be?
And with that as well, sorry, it's just come back to my head. It'll jump again if it doesn't. Sorry, for interrupting you. It is literally that, because if you have it then, and again, it sort of links to my like LGBTQ sort of rights and responsibilities and education as well. Like, if you don't teach children that it's, or anyone really, not just children, like that this is a thing and it happens and it's okay, it means that when, you know, someone of that education system then has to sort of present themselves and look at themselves and go, what am I? Who am I? What defines me? And why is this affecting me? If they suddenly go, well, I have this thing and it's called ADHD. Oh my God, does anyone else have it? I don't really want to talk about it. And that then leads to like a negative spiral of like, oh my God, why me? What am I doing? Why is this suffering for me? What have I done to deserve this sort of thing? And it's a whole negative spiral, and it can cause so many negative connotations with like mental health, and really sort of bring them down, which then, you know, leads down the road what we were saying earlier about like depression, anxieties and things like that. Whereas all that needed to really be done was just have a basic, at least just like, this exists, don't worry about it, it is fine, it just means X, Y, or Z. And I think it is a big thing, like, to actually, obviously, reduces the stigma as well of like you said, like, I have ADHD and I didn't know about hyperfocus until I got diagnosed with it, and I've been living with it for 19 years at that point. So how does anyone who doesn't know that? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and then exactly. If I'm trying to describe it to someone and they don't necessarily believe it, or which or the other, it makes it a whole lot harder to sort of stay positive about yourself, and, you know, it just sucks, really.
The other thing as well is there's, in every school in Britain, there's kids with ADHD. Every school,
100%, 110%, yeah. Or at least those who are presenting in a very high, who may not necessarily get a diagnosis because it's a checklist ADHD, but show and present traits that are very similar to, or at least a solid amount of them.
Yeah. So if, like, in high schools or primary schools, whatever it may be, they just give like a basic outline of, some people have got this and this is what it involves. It just means that their brain works in a slightly different way. It doesn't mean that they're, you know, there's like this huge problem which is going to cause massive issues for the rest of their life, but it just means that their brain fires and works in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Takes,
that like half hour, doesn't it, max, to give like just a little basic explanation, so those kids don't then react negatively if they find out or they get diagnosed with it. They're not thinking, why am I different? Why, you know, well, I just want to be normal, or whatever, you know, all the things that my son said to me when he found out.
Yeah.
But
no, 100%.
We could go on for hours about things that schools should do.
Oh, trust me, my degree is in primary school teaching. I could go on for hours, weeks, months, so long about like the amount of things in the education system that are ridiculous and vitriol that we have to teach, yet have no like functional purpose in real life. But I digress. Thank you, our Tory overlords. You have totally not buggered up the whole system. What? Who said that?
Buggered up everything. Police, teaching,
Anything
country as a
public
whole.
service, anything public service, anything that, there's an absolute cluster at the minute. I just stay away from touching that one, otherwise I'll be here all night. Trust me.
I said no politics on my podcasts from the start, and then every time I do this series called Unscripted and Uncensored, where
good luck with politics on that then.
Just get people to send in topics or questions, and then me and the guests have just got to talk about it.
Oh God!
So we had Roderick Giggs for the first show, which was really interesting.
Nice.
So he's a really cool dude actually. But you can imagine the questions which people wanted to ask, and to be fair to him, he just addressed them all, and he was cool. Then the next one I had a MMA fighter, Lee Remedios, on.
Oh right, yeah, nice.
And he is like super opinionated, but not like in a negative way. He's got an opinion about everything.
Yeah.
And he like writes it on his social media and stuff. So me kind of thinking, he's an MMA fighter, it'd be really cool. I'd quite like to speak to him. And then I said, I'm having Lee Remedios on. Send in your questions. And it was just like just hundreds of questions about, what was it, like Boris Johnson, Trump, knife crime, gun crime. I was like, well, there goes the politics out the window.
Yeah, it's like no politics.
It was really fun. And then today I recorded a show with a Welsh Assembly politician. So there we go.
So no politics.
Politics is
how many episodes? So you've done like 70 episodes, isn't it? And it's like 70 episodes. Well, we'll just politician. It's fine. It's the same thing, right? But the thing is, though, with that, like, as much as we joke about it in that sense, like, I hate this idea that people can't be, so public, especially like, so again, linking this to sort of situational and stuff, but like wrestling, stuff like that. One of the best wrestlers in the world, arguably the best British wrestler in the world at the minute, Zack Sabre Jr. You look at his social media, it is probably 70% politics, 30% other miscellaneous, including wrestling. Like, I hate this idea that just because you are, actors or this, and it's like, you shouldn't talk about politics. Why not? Like, that's literally the point. If you have that social reach, like, you see all these bloody social media influencers who've, it's just another, sorry to stereotype, but another white person with a camera and a conservative parents, like, heritage, who can, spill vitriol to the entire social media population of 100,000 potential subscribers and whoever watches their video, and make everyone think that it's okay to say, I identify as a penguin. Piss off, Piers Morgan. That's okay. But then it's like someone goes, oh, actually, maybe being transphobic on national TV isn't right. And then you get all these people leech onto it and be like, you should never be, politics friendly. I think it should be that thing. It normalizes actually having politics as a general conversation. Like, I wouldn't say that I'm interested in politics necessarily, but I'm not naive enough to go that they don't affect everything in our lives in some form or another, whether it's direct, indirect, or other. Like, politics has an effect on everything that we do in our lives, everything that we look to do, whether it's your job, with the industry that you're in, what's the infrastructure, what support do you need from that, how would you support it potentially, what's your statutory sick pay like, well, that defines on the government. And it's like, actually, no, saying that you're not interested in politics is just completely ridiculous, and it shows your privilege in the world, in my opinion, because it means that you don't have to focus on it. Sorry, I realise I feel like I'm ranting at you here, and I'm not. I'm just like,
oh no,
this has just been built. You can tell this has been building in me for a while. But it's like, I've seen so many people, and it's like, you're what, 21, 22, and you're like, oh, I don't really have an interest in politics. The Brexit vote, I'll just go and vote for it, whatever. No, have an interest in it. It affects everyone, not just you and your bloody privileges that you have. Like, think about it from I can go on for years about this. I'll stop before I go even further. But yeah, basically, do have an interest in politics, even if it's just they suck or they're good or, anything. Like, just at least have a basic understanding of it, because it affects everything we do, whether you like it or not. Sorry.
And there's one thing that everyone should know about politicians, all of them. apart from the one who came on my show today, and that is you can't trust anything they say.
Yes. No, that's very true.
And I finished that with that. So you said you grew up in Merseyside, wasn't it?
Yes.
So would you support Liverpool or Everton then?
Neither.
Neither
for me. So my dad took me to my first football game when I was less than a year old, and he was born and raised in Rochdale, just outside Manchester. So Rochdale are my club proudly. You can actually, I think, maybe just behind me in the camera. Where is it? On the ceiling there. Got my centenary year Rochdale flag from when I went to Wembley to watch us in the playoff final for League Two. Currently League One. Brian Barry Murphy's Barmy Army doing all right.
Of course.
Yeah.
Did you go watch them much then, or?
For the last 3 years, not really, because being in Brighton, it's a bit of a trek to get to Rochdale from there. Anyone who knows anything about UK geography will probably agree with me on that. But yeah, no, I want to go back properly and watch them this season. We've got United in the League Cup very soon, actually. So at Old Trafford, so
big game,
giant killers.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're a level 8 football referee.
Yes, I am.
It's honestly really kind of cool. I really like it, because without referees, there would be no football.
And vice versa.
First of all, how did you get into that?
And
also, what does level 8 like? Where does it start and where does it finish?
Right. So
levels.
Yeah, with levels. So football in levels go basically backwards. Like 1 is the highest, 2, 3, 4. So I'm level 8. I'm pretty much just your sort of like standard Sunday league, pub team referee. That's sort of where I'm at the minute, because to be honest, I haven't tried to pursue it to get any higher in levels, because I wanted to try and put my eggs in wrestling, and here I am. That was a great choice. Well done. But yeah, so levels wise, you start, I think level. So I did start again. Sorry, I started football refereeing when I was maybe 14, I think. Okay. So earlier on, I said about I had about a year's break from wrestling when I got injured. I think from what I can remember, that was when I did it, because I was like, I wanted something else to do in my weekends, and that was something that I'd thought about, and it was a little money earner for me. So it's like pocket money and stuff like that, because ADHD, couldn't sleep half the time, so getting up for a paper round was completely out of the question for me. So when I did my course at Lancashire FA in Leyland near Preston, and started as, I think it's level 9 that you go when you're when you qualify and you're under 16, or it was at that point anyway, or under 18 maybe, one of the two. But basically it means that you're a youth official, and then when you turn 18, you immediately become a level 8 referee, which means you're qualified, but that's sort of like the lowest level that you can be. And it gives you you can referee certain things. That was sort of my. It's really annoying actually that I don't really remember why I got into it. I think, if more than anything, one of my dad's good friends who worked with him at the time at the football club, he'd got into it, and my dad would always tell me oh yeah, Richard's doing this at the minute, and I always found it really cool. I really got on well with him, and I really enjoyed sort of listening to what he was saying. And it's just one of those things that probably put the seed in the back of my mind and was like, oh, I could do that. And I did. And I really enjoyed it.
I find it really interesting though that you got into the kind of wrestling at quite a young age. Yeah. You got even refereeing 14 is quite a young age to be doing that. Yeah. Because obviously, most 14-year-olds would be kind of playing.
Yeah. And I was before that, to be fair. I played rugby from when I was 7 to when I was maybe, I think I was either 11 or 12. And then because we moved, I stopped playing for that team because it was just so much effort with traveling and stuff like that. And I went into doing football, and I was a goalkeeper because every goalkeeper has to be mental, and kind of fits my bill quite well. And then, I got really disenchanted with football
as well. Which is quite funny.
That's brilliant. Oh,
excellent!
I see myself already. Just make sure he doesn't get into wrestling refereeing. That's a slippery slope. No, I'm joking. It's brilliant, really. Just every now and again. So that was sort of Yeah, at 14, it was a bit weird actually, like refereeing, I must admit. But like, obviously, at that point, you weren't able to sort of. I mean, it'll still be the case, I'm sure. But like, I couldn't ref anyone in a higher age group than myself. So I think it was like a 2-year difference. It had to be. So like, I could ref from like under 12s downwards,
Okay.
teams wise, which was kind of cool because it meant that it was a bit less scary than like having someone your own age who could have potentially been like 2 feet taller than you at that point. Because I was a short ass. So.
Yeah, and like at the age of just kind of like 14 or whatever, you don't want to be refereeing kids your age, do you? Because might be kids you know from school or just
sort of a conflict of interest
around or
even.
whatever.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So, like, before I ask you about your negative experiences around like refereeing football matches, and this grassroots football, obviously, like I mentioned numerous times, I've got 3 boys, and the oldest one and the youngest one play football between the 2 of them pretty much 7 days a week, which is fun for Dad Taxi.
I was going to say taxi service, yeah.
Yeah, my wife doesn't drive either, so it's literally like down to. So I don't mind because
that's strategic from her. I like that. She knew exactly what she was doing there.
Yeah, it's weird. Like sometimes I can be like a bit like again, but equally, I said like we discussed off air. I've just talked about it before. Like when I had my car accident, I had 5 years of being on crutches and using a wheelchair, which meant I got a peek into completely not being able to do anything for myself. I had that little peek into what could have happened if I didn't have my spinal fusion when I did. So, anyway,
of course.
Another tangent.
Best things.
What's the best thing about refereeing football matches, grassroots football matches for you?
Seeing some like obviously really talented people, like. So it never ceases to amaze me. Like I was never a talented footballer, and like I'm happily able to say that. But like, it's that thing where like you'll hear it all the time. You know, if you watch football on TV, and it's like these people's like, yeah, they get told that they were in the academy at this age, and they just had this spark of talent, and it's kind of like it's a bit sort of you think it's a cliche, but then like so there was a match I refereed like outside of Brighton, a few months ago now. It would have been like April time probably because it was the end of the season. And it was a team, and the team was made up of like 22 and 23-year-olds. And they were like academy people who also were then not playing in the academy at that time for whatever reason. And just watching them actually play like up close and personal is like, it's insane. Like the speed that what they can like distribute the ball or control it and, dribble it around and beat people and ping off another pass to get somewhere else. It's brilliant. Like, and as someone who loves football, it's like, well, this is the best seat in the house. Similar with wrestling, to be fair, that's one of the best things as well. But like, it really is just being able to see like these fantastic players, and also like, so when I started it originally, like when I was 14, obviously I had a lot less scope for teams that I could referee, obviously due to transport, age, etc., etc. So like, you do sort of see the same players a lot of the time through the season. Like you'll see them a fair bit. Not that you get to know them like in a personal sense, but like. You can see, like, especially like if you ref someone at the start of a season, at the end of the season, and a bit in the middle as well, like you can actually see that progression. And obviously, because unlike their coach, you'll see them every training session, every match, and it might be a bit less obvious to them. Whereas, like, of course, like anything, like if you see something every day, like. But for me, sometimes I just like to watch that as well. I just think it's really fascinating and sort of one of the things as well is like personal growth with people. Like you can see as they become more confident in that, they become more like, because I'm a people person, I'm a people watcher even. I am a people person as well, to be fair. So like if I'm warming up and things like that, I mean, I'll always have my eyes on the teams just to make sure nothing's going to kick off or anything like that and just gauge what's going on. But like I'll certainly see like the characters of the teams and things like that and be sort of, as horrible as it is, you do make like preconceived notions of people. And it does interest me sometimes to see that and see people get more confident and think, oh, okay, you're more confident this time. That's interesting. Did you have a bad day? Or then you'll see them and they're playing and they're sort of their playmaker now and things like that. And it just gives them that confidence. And I think that's brilliant. Yeah, quite wholesome that, I suppose, really. But yeah, that's sort of my best thing that I love about football refereeing.
Yeah, it's cool. And really mean that. I think it's really good, and I think like grassroots football, even like I've been watching my older boy for a good few years now since he was under nines. My other boy's 10 and he's been playing for 3 years. And like I'm quite vocal from the side, but in like a kind of a positive way.
Yeah.
Like the most negative I'll be is like saying something like to him, like, come on, you're better than that. Or like, if I don't think he's trying hard enough or something like that, or he's not, or my older one's not concentrating as much as he should be.
Yeah.
But like, you wouldn't believe like some of the stuff I've seen from parents and coaches. Actually, you probably have as a referee, like seen
probably have.
Worse.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the fun parts.
Yeah, so like firstly, I'm going to assume that as a grassroots referee, you've probably experienced some kind of vocal abuse.
Oh yeah.
On the field or afterwards.
Oh yes. Yes.
So kind of I'm assuming it's a fairly regular thing when it's not kind of overly aggressive, but you're going to get like the odd, F off ref, you blind, whatever, that type of stuff. I'm assuming that's sort of part and parcel of being a ref.
Yeah, and they usually get a yellow card and it stops very quickly because it's dissent. Yeah. And I think I became quite notorious for not taking anyone's shit with that. Like just being like, well, no, you don't need to say that. So why are you saying it? You basically just sort of being like, at the start of the game, it'd be kind of like when I'd go and like chat to the teams, it'd be like, hey, I also am a human. If you come and scream at me, the chances of anything going your way, if you think I've got a decision wrong, is very unlikely. And if you're not able to come and have a civil conversation with me, that's probably a dissent, and that will be a yellow card. And especially since last season when obviously like sin bins were trialled for the last couple of seasons. I was in one of the trials for that, one of the leagues that I was refereeing in. It was brilliant. Like you saw a massive difference from the start of the season to the end of the season. I think I've completely tangented off what you were trying to say there.
No, that's okay. Though. That's fine. So with the sin bins, they what would that be, like 10 minutes off or something like that? Is it?
Yeah, it literally. So the way the sin bins were introduced, obviously in the pilot leagues, I don't fully. I mean, at the minute, I was going to start refereeing this season, but due to the injuries and stuff, I'm not going to do that anytime soon. So I haven't actually kept up on the official laws of if they changed it since the pilot. But from what I was aware, basically, it's a yellow card directed towards a area, usually technical area at Grassroots, and it's 10 minutes off, completely off. Like you're not allowed to take part in the game. You're not allowed to just have a substitution. You are down to 10 men for that time. For anyone who knows rugby, exactly the same as that. Yeah. And then it's basically like, but that doesn't count as a yellow card offence, as in like you could then still, if you came back onto the pitch and then committed a challenge that was worthy of a yellow card caution, you would get that yellow card, and that wouldn't be 2 yellow cards sent off. Okay, that would be just like your first yellow card. So in theory, you could technically have 3 yellow cards and be then sent off, as opposed to the 2 before. And like obviously, it's that thing where you have to use your discretion and stuff like that. But I think actually it did make a notable difference, and I honestly do believe that it should be something that actually would make a massive difference in the global game and the elite football and the professional level. Because at the end of the day, like you see it all the time. Like rugby might have the refs mic'd up. Someone who loves rugby myself, that's why that's my reference point for sin bin and dissent and things like that. In rugby, it's that idea of like, actually have like a basic level of respect, and they're mic'd up. So they know that if they say something to the ref, it's going to be picked up on a microphone, especially if that game's live on like Sky and stuff like that. They are going to be very careful with what they say. I think adhere some of the Premier League footballers to that, because it'd soon stop the horrific things that are being said and done. And also, it'd actually just flat out probably solve a lot of the grey area where it's like, well, this person's actually horrible and they said this and they said that. Well, actually, here's the voice recording that states that you're actually wrong. And it gets rid of a lot of ambiguity. And I do genuinely believe that. I think it'd be a great addition to elite level football, and hopefully, since the pilot's gone well, and obviously it's been introduced at grassroots level, I can only hope that it sort of progressively makes its way up the leagues as well.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting if that gets to like the Premier League and stuff, because I think a few footballers might have their images tarnished initially.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think
maybe some of the clean-cut footballers. Yeah, absolutely, they do.
Yeah, and some of the clean cut ones that you wouldn't expect are suddenly like, oh, okay, right, okay. And that's the thing, and I feel like it actually would make a difference, and you would actually get a true representation. And I think that's a big thing, obviously, at the minute. Like, well, not just at the minute, but like generally with social media and that, like, it's very easy for people to be held to standards that are actually not reachable without Facetune and all these personal trainers and supplements and whatever else that they put in them to make it look as if you too can be as fit as this footballer who spends 90% of their time in the gym with specialist equipment and specialist personal trainers who then also analyze their data and give them the specific diet that they don't pay for, and also that they've had this photo shoot where they've also had to have an hour of makeup and then an hour afterwards where they've spent in the actual photo for you to see that one image that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life about why your body isn't right. And it's like that sort of thing. People being held to unattainable standards and levels, like maybe as a social standpoint and how they react in the moment, that introduction in elite level football and professional football would then actually show that people are human even at that level, and hopefully be a nicer representation to those who are trying to come up. You know, you said about your sons, who obviously 14's the eldest, being able to see that and actually see that, you know, Gareth Bale's a human being, and not just someone you can see on TV, and still has the same idea of what they can say and all the. Do you know what I mean? I just think that that's actually it humanizes people a lot more. But I think as a general, that humanization can never be a negative thing, especially in a world where we're consumed by this idealistic mantras that aren't necessarily attainable.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with that completely. So can you tell me some of the worst cases of like abuse you've suffered as when you were refereeing?
Oh, right. So
or just some examples maybe.
Well, the general sort of thing is from parents and things like that, and there's been a few times where I've had to speak to coaches about parents. There is one refereeing incident that I've had that was the worst thing that's ever happened to me in football refereeing, and it actually made me stop refereeing for nearly 4 years. From when I was about 15. No, do you know what? It would have been about 16, because I didn't actually start refereeing until I was in my third year of uni in Brighton. Trigger warning for anyone who's had like abuse of like sexual orientation abuse. Basically, when I was like 16, 17, I was refereeing a game in Blackpool and refereed the game, whatever. And the team that in question were well known for their intriguing beliefs, that sort of area. And not that I was trying to stereotype them before, because I wasn't, and I was just sort of like, I'll take people at face value. It's my first time officiating them. They were not necessarily happy with some of the decisions I made, which I was like, that's fair, you can be upset with what I said, with what my decisions were, sorry. And I was like, that's fine, that's part and parcel of me knowing the rules and you interpreting them and stuff like that. And so at the end of the game, I went around and was shaking people's hands, etc., and I had, these were under 13s, I should point out, so these kids are like 12, 13 years old, and had someone call me an effing faggot, you homo C-word, there was a couple of others, and I was like, what? Because that was actually, to be honest with you, probably one of the first times I directly sort of had any homophobic abuse, and also at the time I wasn't like out either, so it was very much like a big thing for me. So I went to speak to the coach, and I was like, this is not okay, I will be making a report about it. And the coach just laughed in my face and went, right, whatever, you absolute...
That's where they got it from.
Yeah. So I was like, right, okay. And then that turned me off refereeing for like 4 years, like I said, so I didn't get back to it until like less than a year ago, maybe. So yeah, that's definitely the worst experience. And not that I'm trying to like vilify football refereeing. I don't think that's something that realistically happens more than once every blue moon, and not that it ever should anyway. But yeah, that was definitely the worst thing I've ever had in my life with regards to like abuse.
You kind of
it just
you
threw me
hear
off completely.
about. Yeah, I'm not surprised, and it's even. I think it's almost even worse that it was from like kids.
Yeah, no, the fact that
don't expect it.
And it wasn't even that like they were older, like 15, 16, where, you know, they've started to understand what sex is and what sexual orientation preferences can be, and then using that as a negative stereotype. It's like, these kids are like 12, 13 years old. Like and the fact that that's okay. And like, because I mean, I don't want to say it's like old school, but like I'm very much like, especially with the kids' games, if I hear them swearing, I'm like, pack it in now, or you will be getting a yellow card for dissent, because dissent doesn't have to be against their opponent; it can be towards teammates, etc. Because as much as it's quite an archaic thing to think, but like I don't think that it has any place in a grassroots game. They want to do that when they're an adult fair game, like that's up to them. But at the same time, in grassroots, there's better ways to express yourself than using F this, you're this, you're this, you're the other. Like, just learn to use your people words first before you start adding swear words in there. Don't get me wrong, swear words can be a great thing for clarifying a point, because I use them a lot. But at that stage, I'm like, no. So I think that was also a big thing for me. I was like, what on earth is going on here? Like, yeah, that one threw me massively, to be fair. I didn't even tell anyone about that for like 2 years after it either, which was fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, it baffles me with the grassroots games where you see the coaches and the parents, the players, they give the referees so much grief, and I just think if it wasn't for these referees turning up, let's be fair, they don't get paid a great deal of money to turn up on a Saturday and referee the games. And
a lot of referees I know pay ref like 4 games a day on a Saturday, 4 games a day on the Sunday. Like, that's the sort of, just because it's not paid that well anyway, but because they enjoy it as well. But yeah, sorry, carry on. That's sort of.
No, but what I was going to say is like, and if these referees stop coming, which obviously is a problem because there's not enough referees at the very top level. You see it all the time or you hear it all the time on the radio. They're talking about they need referees, they need top referees. Yeah. And referees are dropping out of the game in their, teens, late teens, early 20s, because they probably get a lot of it has surely got to do with the amount of abuse that they're taking and the attitudes. And also
and that was the introduction of the sin bin idea as well, like to try and eliminate that a bit more from the game, which obviously has done quite well.
But the other thing as well is the coaches doing the refereeing themselves, they get fed up of it by the time they get to under 16s of reffing their own matches because of the attitudes of these teenage kids and because of the coaches and the parents. So they don't want to do it themselves. They understand how difficult it is, but yet they seem to forget and
perpetuate the ideas to their players, and it becomes a problem. Yeah, massively. Absolutely. 100%.
So, do you think the FA is doing enough to kind of protect grassroots referees and punish offending teams and players? Because I know, like, at least a couple of times every season, I read in papers or on social media about a few horror stories about referees being assaulted or chased into car parks or being beaten up. I'm not saying that happens all the time, but it does happen a couple of times a season at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one really to say like if the FA themselves are doing enough. I think from the perspective of reducing abuse and trying to understand the role of the referee, I think they are doing a lot with regards to education of that, and I think the sin bin was, in retrospect, a good addition to that to try and reduce the dissent levels. The issue is grassroots football is so brilliant because it has the inclusion of anyone, and that, like we said earlier, actually, like right at the start, I think where we said everyone can be part of social media, but the problem is everyone can be part of social media. Similar with grassroots football. And you will get people in there who have got a lot of issues that necessarily haven't been ironed out and probably shouldn't be into it. I do think that this isn't like a diss at the FA at all, because it's not something that they can do, but I do think that clubs themselves should be doing more about it, and clubs should be taking it seriously. And they should be investing in ways to safeguard everyone, not just referees, but they're, maybe it's sometimes opposing teams or spectators and things like that, whether it comes down to, paying for a CCTV system around where their changing areas are or the vicinity of the pitches and things like that. Obviously, that's not something that's free, but at the same time, like, if that's what it takes to make people feel comfortable to come and watch, officiate, take part in a football game, because at the end of the day, grassroots football in itself is just for, it's to introduce people to the game, and it's to show them how good football can be and how much you can enjoy it. It's not there for people to be assaulted and called names and actually be afraid to go to certain area of a town because of a thing that's happened to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I haven't mapped that part of Blackpool since it happened, and that's what, 6 years ago now. Like, deliberately have made an effort not to go near it, and that's not okay. And I recognise it's not okay, but I also know that, you know, carrying on from it. And I think, I do think obviously it's that thing where, like, shy of, you know, paying for every place to have CCTV and, you know, doing really, but it's a really hard thing to sort of figure out. And maybe I'm definitely not the best person to ask about it, ideas wise. But I do think that the clubs themselves have to have an onus. I'm going to link it back to rugby again. Like, in rugby, spectator fines, like Salford Red Devils had a fan who lit a flare, dropped it on the floor next to them, and stamped it out at their Leeds game a couple of weeks ago. This was at Leeds. All fans had been searched prior. Salford got the fine for that fan, not the fan, Salford. That is what I think needs to happen. You know, clubs need to be responsible for their own, and it needs to happen more often. Happens all the time in rugby, and then it stops. It stamps it out a lot quicker. In football, it's very wishy-washy with that. I do think it needs to be a lot more like regimented in the sense of, this is not okay. If you think this is okay, this is not for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I
think that sort of went off.
No, you're right. I think, it kind of gets lost when you, even with things like racist abuse and stuff like that, like UEFA and FIFA, a very, very, perfect expression, wishy-washy. The punishments are never consistent.
Nope.
They only ban nations, or they fine clubs if they really, really have to. And it's been like brought to the attention of like the worldwide media by, you know, players or teams or whatever it may be, or social media. Whereas it should be like a swift action, and that nation should be held responsible, or the club, and they should because people will soon weed it out if the team is being punished. And, you know, if in the case of like repeated offenders of racist abuse, if a team has to play their games behind closed doors, or they get deducted points, the other fans will police their fans because it's affecting the team's performance.
Exactly. And there was one word you said there that I think is really key as well, and it's swiftness. So many with UEFA and things, and FIFA especially, like, you'll get these racist remarks, for example, or homophobic comments or things like that. And it's like, for some reason, it takes them 3 months to make a decision on it.
Yeah.
I'm not being funny, but like things like that, if you want to set a precedent of that is not okay, you need to go, this is not okay, we are responding to it in this way, and we are responding to it now. And I get the whole idea of wanting all the facts, but I'm not being funny. For a worldwide organisation, like, that's not okay to be able to do it in 3 months or 3 weeks. It's got to be, if you want to set a precedent that this is not okay, you need to be able to act quickly. If it means you have to invest more in resourcing to make sure that you can investigate it quicker, to ensure that you've got a fair outcome quicker, sure, do that then, because that is what needs to be done. Because otherwise you're just saying, well, you know, we'll have a look at it and we'll sort of see what it is, rather than, this is not okay, we are investigating it, we will get back with a decision within 2 days because we are looking at this, and this. We take it very seriously. There will be a fine for this club because we have evidence that it is from this. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's lost in. They're trying to not offend people by being so strict on it, but at the end of the day, like, would you rather offend the perpetrator, or would you rather disenfranchise a whole minority who might have been subject to that abuse, who then don't feel safe? You know, I would like. So you're saying that, it's okay to call Ashley Cole when that was a big thing, wasn't it? Was it Ashley Cole who had the abuse at Chelsea? And it's like, and I'm pretty sure that was his own team as well, and his own fans potentially. And it's like, so you're telling me that for 3 months this player has to go out and potentially go, okay, that's not making them feel safe and secure.
Corners and throw-ins by the same fans.
Exactly.
If they've got season tickets, so they've got to go there every week.
100%.
Stand 5 yards away.
Yeah, exactly. And that's at, elite levels of the game. Sure, like, where you have got all these resources, you've got cameras everywhere, you've got CCTV. At Grassroots, you can sort of go, okay, fair game, you haven't got that much evidence. I can kind of get past it. And it is word for word. But, like, that's just not okay. And it then reverberates around to, like, well, anyone else, a person of colour who might then go, well, actually, do I really want to be a part of this? Do I really want to put myself in that potential situation? And I know if it was me, like with regards to homophobic abuse, I've not gone to games because I know of things that have happened in the past for that reason. Like, it's just, it baffles me sometimes how nonchalant such the biggest footballing bodies in the world can be to such serious issues.
Oh yeah, they head in the sand springs to mind.
Yeah, like the ostrich. Is it an ostrich?
Yeah, ostrich, head in the sand, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So okay, let's move into wrestling then.
Yeah, sorry, we've made it took a bit of a detour to get there.
Sorry, detours everywhere. So obviously, up until recently, you've been a wrestling referee, as you mentioned, which again I got to say is really cool. We'll talk about why you are no longer a referee in a second, but yeah, footy ref, wrestling ref.
Yeah,
just like you either like having the best seat in the house, or you just got to be in charge. I can't decide which one it is.
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely best seat in the house. Like, crikey. Yeah, absolutely best seat in the house. And you know, it always makes me smile because I did the Progress World Cup show in 2018. Obviously, it's the World Cup year for football, and Progress is the World Cup show. And I was speaking to Glenn beforehand, and I was like, yeah, no, I am actually a legitimate football referee. And I know that they put that on commentary and stuff like that as well. And it just made me smile because it's like, in my head, I always think like, you know, I don't actually watch South Park, and never have, but I just remember the clip where it's like, respect my authority. And it's just, I think it's from South Park anyway. And it just, every time I just see that meme in my head, and I don't actually know if it's offensive or anything like that to anyone, because I don't know any of the context of it, but it just makes me smile because that's sort of in my head how I probably look to most people by having like football referee, wrestling referee, and it's like you have this like law and order sort of fixation, and I'm like, yeah, fair game, to be fair. What it actually means is I'm just really bad at both football and wrestling, so can't do it. So I'm just like going for the next best thing and just going for reffing because, you know, it's kind of, you know, because then you can be a bit of an horrible person and be like, no, that's not in the rule book.
So, you've worked with some of the biggest companies, wrestling companies in the UK, and you know, Rev Pro and Progress, massive companies. And we talked a bit about you did training from, you know, like a young age. You were involved in wrestling. When did you sort of start training into taking like basic bumps and stuff?
Day one of training. I think I said this. Who did I say this to? I said it to someone recently after the whole debacle that caused Twitter to implode a little bit. But literally, like every week that I went to wrestling training, our warm up, not like training, our warm up was on mats that were probably a centimetre thin. In a stunt school in Morecambe, we would do 100 back bumps, 50 front bumps, 50 side bumps, so like falling on one arm and the other arm 50 times. That was our warm-up. That was before we got anywhere near the ring or anything like that. And I said this to the same person as well. Again, I'm trying to remember who it was now. It'll come to me later. If there is one thing in wrestling that I'm very comfortable doing and I'm very confident in my ability to do, it is bump safely without any issues or injuries. Proven because there has only been one injury I've ever had in wrestling, 2 injuries I've ever had in wrestling. One is a mark that I still have on my leg, which I can't lift up at the minute because my back is hurting like anything and my spine because of everything. So I can't actually lift it up and show you. But basically, I went over the rope backwards, like a clothesline to the outside in a training match. And someone had left a dumbbell just outside the apron, and my knee and my shin went clicked on that, and I've still got like a big scar on it from there. My
Nasty.
Leg was gushing with blood. It was gnarly. Finished the match though, even though it was training. That is the only injury I've ever had in wrestling. Obviously, like, been winded here and there, but that's about it. So if there's one thing I'm very confident in, it's my ability to fall very safely and protect myself when I know situations are prevalent too.
Yeah. So there's a reason, obviously, that we're discussing the fact that you had training to take basic bumps.
Yep.
There is also... So, for people who are not aware, if there's people who are interested in wrestling and not aware, I'm not sure, but there we go.
There might be.
Never know. Yeah.
Aaren Wilde, get the scoop.
So a couple of weeks ago, was it a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks tonight as we're recording this on the Friday. To be honest with you,
You
probably
were-
about 2 weeks tonight at the time that we're currently on as well, give or take.
See, that's a bit eerie, isn't it?
Yeah, it is actually in some ways. First time I've actually talked about it publicly as well. Like since, so it's kind of weird. Well, apart from obviously the tweets, but yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming on anyway. And
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. Sorry, tangent.
So yeah, so basically what happened is you were reffing a tag team match.
Yes.
And there was a finish. So correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was you weren't supposed to, or it wasn't supposed to be the finish. But the pin got counted. 1, 2, 3, and then one of the competitors gave you I've forgotten what the move was now. Top of my head, I should scoop slam, I think, wasn't it? Which you weren't expecting, you weren't prepared for. There wasn't like an agreed part of the show. Basically, what he has said afterwards is that because the finish wasn't as planned, he was thinking on his feet to try and, sure there was no kind of confusion within, from a spectator point of view. So he wanted to sort of create something. And he obviously, I'm just going from his statement, obviously he apologised and said he shouldn't have done it without permission because, I'm not involved in wrestling. And I would imagine that one of the rules is generally don't do moves on people who are not expecting it. Because that's when accidents can happen.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing you say that as well, like about rules, because realistically, like, there isn't. As ironic as it is that I'm a referee, there is no, as far as I'm aware, outside of any major company, there is no governing body, there is no code of conduct, no code of ethics that any wrestling promotion or entity outside of potentially the main worldwide global ones who are regularly on television and pay-per-views who have code of conduct, code of ethics. They might not have, I don't know, like genuinely I haven't got a clue, but I know that there is no governing body for wrestling.
I think
I think one of the issues with that is resulted in what has obviously happened.
Yeah, because what I was going to say actually is obviously there's obviously been talk about unions within wrestling since I can remember.
Decades now, it's got to have been.
Yeah, it's gone on as forever, and there's this reason and there's that reason for not, there is or there isn't, and you can blame whoever you want for the reasons. But I mean, if there was a union, for employees and wrestlers, do you feel that it would have been dealt with a different way, or do you feel like it would have been? Maybe it wouldn't have happened at all. I don't know. It's because there would be, if there's a union, there'd be rules in place, like written rules or guidelines or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I think it's tricky to sort of say like something never would have happened because, not to be crude in any way, but like actually it relates to the podcast you said you recorded earlier with a politician. Like there are many, many laws on knife crime and it still happens. If someone wants to do it bad enough, they will. Obviously, that's a whole big conversation about, obviously, if there's enough and stuff. But it sort of is one of these things where I feel like it could have been dealt with in a different way, definitely. Like over the last sort of couple weeks since I posted the original statement, I've literally only been on Twitter probably twice. Once was to actually tweet about the fact that I got my job, so I was all right financially, and just to thank people about sending me some donations on PayPal. And the second time was literally I just spent a couple of hours replying to the ridiculous amount of DMs that I got, which was overwhelming on so many levels, like amazing and like but like so this hasn't actually this is something that I haven't said publicly at all, but like I did make an effort to stop this from going public. I spoke to the promoter on 2 separate occasions. I spoke to the promoter. I've told him that I remember speaking to him 2 occasions. So I'm not telling you something that I shouldn't tell you. I made an effort to try and speak to one of the perpetrators twice over the weekend as well. The result wasn't what I anticipated it would be. So to try and diffuse situations, I sort of moved away from it. And that's something that I've had some brief messages with them on social media, but we are going to actually have a proper phone call at some point. We've talked about that. Just I haven't had a chance to at the minute because I've been hectic with job searches, interviews, inductions to new jobs, physiotherapy, GP appointments, X-rays, etc., etc. So it's just been a bit of a hectic week. Yeah, my brain's sort of gone a bit blank now, but like I do think that there has to be something in place to stop this from happening, and an educational culture needs to be derived, because the one thing that has actually upset me the most about the entire situation is not the fact that I no longer can referee wrestling at all, and the chance of me ever going back to it are very slim, just simply because of the impact on my shoulder might separate it completely, even if once recovered. The issue I have is, and the disappointment and sadness that I have is how many people who are performers who wrestle did not discondone what happened until very clear footage emerged that was from a fan cam, not even from the promotion. I'm really disappointed that so many people think it should have been done in private when it was, and nothing was done. And then it took me going public with it for something to be done. And it wasn't my intention to make something a big deal out of it. My intention was, I just wanted to put out that I wasn't being able to ref anymore. And my intention was, right, I can't be bothered to reply to like the same 10 people who would probably ask me, why am I not refereeing anymore? So I thought, right, I'm just going to be open and honest, tell you the facts. This is what happened. This is why I'm no longer doing it. And then a few other people than the 10 people I expected to actually interact with it. And here we are, just over a week later, with it going a bit bonkers. And hopefully, and this is the one thing I really hope does come from it, actually, considering the fact it blew up wasn't intentional. If this never happens again, or someone is never put in the position that I was put in again, that is okay with me. Not that I'm trying to be a martyr or anything like that. I'm really not. But I suppose that's literally the definition of the word. But I just feel like the way things were dealt with was very much and I hate the term old school mentality, but it was, and not just old school wrestling, but old school society, where they think where it was believed it was okay, and it was justified because wrestling. It's not. It wasn't in any way, and yeah, it disappoints me how many people, even at my age and slightly younger, who were involved in wrestling as wrestlers, thought that it would still be okay to do just because wrestling, and just because maybe the intended finish of the performance that was the match wasn't straight to plan. And I'm very much an advocate of having contingency in place for that in future, and I think it's something that really needs to be discussed and made prevalent, whether not just at shows, not just on social media. It needs to be happening in training schools. People need to be taught this is not okay. The only way that the world moves forward is with education. I'm a very strong believer in that. And this means that, how do you get educated in wrestling? You go to a wrestling school. So wrestling trainers need to be making sure that their students know this. They need to know that it is not okay. I had a lovely message, and I hope he doesn't mind me calling him out for it in a nice way, is from Rishi Ghosh, who runs Quality Wrestling Academy down on the South Coast, just outside of Havant. And he is fantastic as a wrestler and a performer. He's a brilliant coach, I can tell you that as a fact. But he's someone who I respected greatly, and like he was telling me, he was just talking to me generally about things and asking me how I was. And he was saying like how, it needs to be taught in school. It needs to be taught in wrestling schools that taking liberties with someone isn't okay. We're all taught how to do a standard back bump or front bump, but no one really gets taught, well, actually, this is what to do in a situation like this. Yeah. In a nutshell, too long didn't read, needs to be more education in wrestling. Results in less injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a contingency plan where if something happens where the finish is, for lack of a better word, ruined from what it's supposed to be,
or changed or whatever.
It's just also an injury happens during the match. So
which on the same show that literally happened, the tag match prior to the one I was on, literally
So
an
it's
injury
having
happened
something in
and-
place, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whether it's someone else running in or whatever it may be to make sure the show can go on without really the audience becoming massively aware of it. But
Yeah.
you can also not in the situation which you were put in. So obviously we've discussed.
But like,
initial
sorry,
bit.
just before we go on about that, like, I'm not trying to suggest. What I was saying was, I'm not trying to suggest that as a contingency plan, every promoter needs to, or every performer needs to go, well, if this match doesn't go 100% to plan, we will have this person run out and this person will do this. I'm not trying to say that, because that I don't think is actually a feasible idea for a lot of the independent promotions that are run in the UK and around the world. What I am saying is we need to have that contingency where actually things do go wrong and things do change, and we need to have the ability as an industry to be able to respond in the moment. You know, wrestling is praised so often and brought to the forefront because it is the only form of entertainment in the entire world that exists that goes directly off the audience reaction and can change in the moment, apart from maybe like stand-up that's what's the word, like
improvisation.
Yeah, improv. It is the only thing that can do it, and on a national and international scale, it's the only thing that can react to it. You know, you talk about like the Daniel Bryan Yes movement. You talk about so many things like that that would not happen had it not been for the groundswell from a very live reaction. What needs to, like, there needs to be more discussion and education. Again, it's a key point, education on what to do in that situation, and it shouldn't be, you know, I'm very lucky in my confidence, my own abilities to go, if something does go wrong, to be able to take control of the situation and go, right, okay, this more for injury, because I've had to do that in a couple of occasions because of my medical background and being able to treat people medically with first aid and things like that. What obviously happened wasn't an injury at all. It was just something. It was just what happened in the match. I hate the fact that the reason I'm like annoyed that I had to go public about this is because I do like trying to, you know, like, I hate the word, like, you know, but like protect the business sort of thing, because, you know, I do think it is sort of like magician's art and magician's sort of code, where it's like a magician never tells his secrets. That's sort of, because that's how I got into wrestling originally, like I said earlier, as this idea of it was a magic trick. But at the same time, when this illusion is resulting in injury, serious injury, in discrimination, and when this illusion is masquerading itself to the point where victims are not feeling prepared to come forward because they are the ones who are going to get the consequences of the actions taken, not the perpetrators. Let's be honest about it. The reason I went public, and the reason I didn't really care about the fact I went public, was I can't referee anymore. If I'd burned every single bridge with the tweets that I put out, it did not matter. But that's not okay. That shouldn't be okay. It should be that, you know, I would have felt confident enough to go backstage and go. So the phrase I used to someone in a private message who doubted me on the fact that I went public about it was, and I said to that person, shy of screaming in the face of the promoter, this is not okay, take it seriously, I genuinely do not know what I could have done that weekend to make the incidents that happened taken seriously. I genuinely do not know, and kept it privately. Like I said, I didn't actually intend for it to go public in like the sense of a whole viral thing that it was, but at the same time, like, there's this culture within wrestling about, like, you know, the boys and everyone protects each other, and that is brilliant. It's a brotherhood, and I agree with that. What I don't agree with is when that becomes an obsession to the point where they're like, oh, we can't say anything about this, we can't say anything about this. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
that is why before, when I said about how I was so disappointed that so few of them actually wanted to come out in support of this and actually support the fact that it's not okay. At the end of the day, right? Let's you know, let's put cards on the table here. How many touches of young children were exposed? Was it about a year ago now? 18 months ago? How long were they doing that for? Some of them probably. I think it. Again, this isn't a fact, so I'm not fully sure, but I'm pretty sure it was over 5 years from what I was told. Someone knew about that. There is no doubt in my mind someone knew about that. Why is that okay? Why was that allowed? Because of the culture that exists within wrestling for some reason, that everyone has to protect each other, irregardless of how ridiculous and disgusting their actions are. and that is not okay. That might have flown in the 1970s when they were trying to protect their business because it was still presented as a legitimate sport. And I'm not trying to say that there are not legitimate, incredible athletes in wrestling. There are, and they are probably some of the best in the world, bar none, athletically. What I'm saying is, at the grassroots, at the bare bones of what wrestling is, it is still a performance, and it is still trusting your opponent, people that you're around, whether you are crew filming it within vicinity. You've got to be able to trust, at least in some form, whether you realize it or not, the wrestlers not to come and kick you in the back of the head without realizing it and cause you a concussion. The referee has got to be able to be there and perform as a referee without having to think, what do I have to be trained because something might go wrong? I was trained, by the way, in case you're wondering, James Castle. Yeah. Just in case you didn't get my tweet. There are so many things that could be avoided and should be avoided, but aren't because of this, and it is and I will use the word archaic. It's an archaic mentality. Like I said, it may have flown in the 70s, doesn't fly now. Just because it was okay 10 years ago doesn't mean it was okay now. 10 years ago, I don't think I was able to legally get married in the United Kingdom because I'm gay. Now it's legal. That shows things change because we realised as a nation that was ridiculous. Things change because they are realised to be wrong. And if one thing comes out of this, I hope it is that people realise this boys' club, and I hate to use just like boys, men, etc., but that's just like the colloquial term for it. It's not trying to be disingenuous to the incredible female talent that is out there and non-binary, transgender talent that are out there. We need to get rid of it. It's not okay anymore, and it should be moved forwards. Every other industry is moving forwards with this in some form or other. Why is wrestling not? Wrestling is meant to be this celebration of diversity, inclusiveness, and presenting everyone. It's a circus show of everything that's great in the world, bringing it together in a mishmash of professional stunts that take you on a roller coaster of emotions. Why is that okay to do that in front of an audience? But then when you take it back to the performers, we still have this mentality from the 1980s, 1970s, where we have to pretend that he's just kicked someone in the face who didn't deserve it. Well, that's okay. We can protect that. That's not okay. And I do think that, wrestling has not moved with the times so far, not at an independent level anyway. I can't speak for any major company because I'm not part of a major company. I'm not part of that many independents either. But the one independent I will say that I have got the most respect for and feels like home to me is Riptide. Riptide Wrestling in Brighton, at Riptide Rest on Twitter. They are probably the best promotion I've ever come across with their regards to safeguarding, welfare, being sure that even performers are safe and included, and the spectators as well. Having a medic on hand at all times, not even a medic, proper doctor as well, having enough first aid and safeguarding and welfare checks. That is incredible, and that is what should be an industry standard. It shouldn't be that I go, they are the best at it, and it's incredible that they are. It should be that I say, actually, yeah, that's another promotion that does that. It's brilliant. Similar with the medic. Sorry, I'm not trying to rant. Right. But at the same time, like the medical situation, the medics and doctors who should be prevalent at shows, that shouldn't be commended. That should be that should be fundamental when you're putting your body at risk. Obviously, the whole We the Independent movement in itself is fantastic for the inclusion of workers' rights and things like that. And I agree with them on that extent where, like, we need to stop praising these things. They should be taken as standard, and we should be calling out the BS when it's BS. All I did was call out BS that's BS. And that is all I did. I called out BS that should not be tolerated. And it's gone, and people have these opinions on them. It was wrong. It should, and the thing is as well, right? I'm not trying to reference the fact that, if a finish goes wrong or anything like that, you do not physically involve yourself with someone without consent. Consent to anyone who does not know and is not aware, I will make it very, very clear. Yes, I consent. That is okay. They have consented to whatever you've asked them. If it has not had that, they haven't. And it is really as simple as that. It is as black and white in that. There is no grey area for consent. And if you believe there is, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Objectively. And, again, it goes back to the thing. It's just wrestling. It's what wrestling does. No, it's not. It's not. That's not what wrestling does. It might have been what wrestling did, but it is not what it should do now. It should be better. If we want to make an industry that is seen as a farce to so many people and doesn't even get recognition under, is it an art? Is it a sport? Right? If we want to seem less farcical to people, you have to make the effort to make it less farcical. It is a farce that people get away with criminal actions, and we're potentially going to have that swept under the rug. That is not okay. And, you know, I might get flack for saying that and exposing the business for it. I don't care anymore. I don't have any reason to not care. I'll burn every bridge I have to if it means that people don't have to go through this again, that spectators can go to events and pay hard-earned money to go and watch some incredible athletes perform. And no, actually, do you know what? They are incredible performers who can do incredible things, but they are safe. And I am safe in my seat. My welfare and my safety has been thought of and gone for. That is what I'm advocating. What I'm advocating is, I genuinely believe, do we have something where wrestling needs to be modern? Wrestling needs to modernize itself and realize that consent is key. Consent is fucking key. It's not hard. And yeah,
no,
sorry for like going on a bit of a tirade there.
No, you're right.
I am really.
I wanted to let you talk. Yeah, no, I wanted to let you talk. The other thing, what I would like to do now is just clarify a few things with you, ask you a couple of questions, just to some of them, but just stuff that people have thrown at you on social media and stuff. But just as we're talking about it, I think it's a good way to do it. The first thing I wanted to say is we obviously discussed the back bump you took, which you weren't expecting, you weren't ready for. It wasn't part of the show. It wasn't consented to beforehand. And then following that, obviously I'm only going on the video, which I've seen, which as you said is a fan footage. The other participant, well, the other tag team partner from the person who had done the first move on you, outside of the ring, I think he kicked you in the head, punched you and clubbed you repeatedly.
I honestly can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I'm trying to sort of fill in what I see with my own eyes. So obviously, there's, to me, and I'm assuming you, I don't know, I'll ask you now, but there is a big difference to what the first thing is and what the second thing is, because the first thing is a guy, from what I can gather, from what he said and from what it looks like on the video at least, it seems to be a guy trying to keep the show going, if you like, and think on his feet, shall we say. Whereas the second thing is just outright assault. There's no reason for it. They're not working punches and kicks. It's violence and it's assault. That's my opinion. So one of the things I just wanted to fill that in, because when we first talked about it, we only said about the first part, and I feel like the second part is, it was a lot more aggressive and violent, and I didn't want that to get left out.
No, I agree.
Obviously, both things were out of order. Both things were uncalled for, and as you've said, with what you said about consent, that's vital. The second thing is a whole, different story. So the owner, I know you just touched on this slightly, but I just wanted to clarify it really. The owner of Rev Pro said in his statement that the first he knew about it was your Twitter post. But obviously you just said that you tried to do it in private and spoke to him, at least a couple of times to try and do it privately. Can I ask why that didn't end up privately and it ended up going public?
Yeah, so this is something that me and the promoter of Rev Pro, we have spoke on the phone. It's not right for me to say what he said, because that's on him to tell. That's on him to say. I know what he said in the phone call, but again, if he wants to share that, that's up to him. As far as I was aware, I made the promoter aware of the situation when I spoke to them about the match when I got back. For whatever reason, this just wasn't clocked. For whatever reason, I don't know. So I was meant to referee a Friday show and a show on the Sunday. On the Sunday, I was set by the promoter to referee 2 singles matches, a 6-man tag match, and another singles match. 2 of those singles matches were from both wrestlers of the tag team who did what they did, okay? When I saw that I was meant to be refereeing these people, bearing in mind it is a performance at the end of the day, I went to see the promoter in front of other people. There were other people in the room, and said, I'm not comfortable and I'm not prepared to referee those matches. To me, making that concern clear that I'm not prepared to referee the matches with those individual people because of actions that were taken is very clearly having an issue with it. And, okay, even if I want to play devil's advocate with myself and say it doesn't get sorted that day, but then there's, follow-up to it because it's a serious situation on the next day or the next couple of days, I can kind of see that. I told the promoter I do not agree that the first opportunity that they had to understand how I felt about the actions that were taken on the Friday was in my tweets. I told them that, and I don't mind telling you that, because that is the truth. I genuinely do not think that is the first time that they saw it. I'm not trying to say they're a liar. They may have their own reasons for believing that they didn't, cross communication or whatever, but I genuinely believe that prior to the tweets that I sent out, that was not the first occasion of them knowing something was not right in some way.
Yeah.
Whether they knew the extent of it, I don't know.
Yeah.
But as a promoter of a show, I do believe that you have an obligation to understand what is going on your show, and if something that happens that shouldn't happens, you should probably have a bit more of a check on that. I'm sure there was a check, a longer check earlier in the night when an injury occurred in the tag team match before the one that I did, to check on the welfare of the performer because something went wrong. I'm almost certain that happened. So I don't see why the situation is different for me. Maybe it's because I'm not a wrestler. Maybe that doesn't justify me to have any sort of, check. Sorry, was there a second part to that question, or did I just rant about it again?
No, that's fine. The other thing I was going to ask you about is this part, the timing of this part, I'm not 100% sure on, because basically the way I took it in terms of reading the tweets, cool. I saw the statement from the owner and the statement from the company, and then in the replies to said statement, there was a screenshot of I think I'm not on Instagram, so I don't know, but I think it was an Instagram message which said something along the lines of, "Don't worry, I've got your back," between the I think it's the promoter and one of the perpetrators.
I know what you're referring to. Yeah. As far as I'm aware, that screenshot was taken as a screenshot from an Instagram story presented by one of the perpetrators who had screenshotted a message from a Facebook chat. That's what I am aware of. At the current time, I haven't spoken to anyone else about it, so I couldn't. I don't feel comfortable commenting on anything about that yet because I haven't spoken to people. The one thing I've prided myself in this whole situation has been presenting facts. The reason that I'm probably the calmest out of most people in this situation is because everything that I've put public is a fact, and I can prove that this is a fact. I have not lied or over-exaggerated or anything like that. There's one thing I put up, and I can remember it because when I wrote it, it meant a lot to me because I'd read it somewhere as well, and that is that being civil and presenting facts will always win over people who scream, shout, and call all these names and lie. I know that what I have presented online is factual. And I know what I don't currently have are any factual evidence, any facts to understand the screenshot that you're referring to. It is something that I would like to follow up with and find out more facts about it for my own peace of mind more than anything else, because
well, because of the content of it, isn't it?
Because of the content of it, and I'm sure if anyone listening to this hasn't seen it, that you'll find it. It wasn't very quiet on the internet this entire event, so you will find it somewhere, I'm sure. But until I have facts about the full facts any facts that I can get, I don't want to say anything about it because I don't know, and I don't want to misinterpret anything. Or it is something that again, I do wish to follow up, but in between physiotherapy, GPs, etc., I've been a bit of a busy bee this week with all that stuff, so it's been a bit tricky to sort of stay up to date with everyone. I think.
I think that's it's it's obviously it's been a very busy time for you and a stressful time as well. I've seen a lot of people.
Sorry to cut you off there. Just with regards to that stressful thing, like I will say that like I have been completely overwhelmed in such a positive way with like the amount of messages and things that I've had, whether it's on my private social media pages or my Aaren Wilde Twitter account. Like it has blown my entire mind. Like I plan to go on like I said, I don't know if I said this off air or on air, to be honest. But I said that like I've only been on my Twitter account twice since I made that statement, or 3 times, sorry, because I deleted a tweet and put something on, and then I went in to reply to James Castle. Then I went, no, okay, I completely lied. I think it was 4 times. 3rd time would have been to reply to DMs. Yeah, so it's 3 times, sorry. So on the 3rd time when I went in, I only looked at like those tweets when I went on. I didn't even look at anything. I didn't look at my DMs. I didn't look at my mentions. I didn't look at the timeline or anything. The 3rd time I went on because I was like, right, okay, I just want to check DMs and like, because I didn't know who'd messaged me. I didn't want it to like, if it was friends who I only had on Twitter, I wanted to make sure that they knew that, you know, my physiotherapy had just started and that my recovery, albeit a long, long road that it's going to be, according to my physio, is on its way. And that I'm optimistic because I'm a determined, stubborn person. But yeah, so when I went onto that Twitter account, like the amount of messages that I had of support just honestly like broke me to tears. I planned to do it for about an hour because I was like, I don't know how many messages there are. I ended up spending about 3.5, 4 hours just replying to all the DMs that I had. And like, that's insane to me. And I just want to thank again everyone who may listen to this, who may not, who may hear it wherever. Like, the support has meant the absolute world to me because, like I said, I've just been presenting the facts, and to actually have that like as a thing has meant it that what has been a horrible, horrible couple of weeks for me, to be quite honest with you, emotionally, has been somewhat less horrible. So yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say like thank you to basically people in case they haven't seen it or anything, or don't know if I've said it or not. But honest to God, thank you so much. Yeah, sorry. Anyway,
no, that's fine. You can say whatever you want, mate. I will stop grilling you now, mate, and say it's just like last couple of questions, and I just want to clarify for people who might be listening and watching, and you know, some people will be obviously following what's been going on. Yeah. So I feel like it's a good opportunity for you to clarify anything, especially some of the stuff which, like they said about the training. People have obviously they've criticised Rev Pro for the slowness of their reaction. Yeah. Because it was quite quickly clear to the fans, at least, what had happened, and the video emerged. You know, it was clear.
And the original statements that were made were just proven to not be as true as the statements I made.
Yeah. So how do you feel about the way that the company reacted in the week after, and the ultimate punishment for the 2 perpetrators?
I'm not going to lie and say that my first instinct was don't let either of them work ever again, because I don't think that it's fair. That came from a place that was obviously, for me, I was in a very bad place at that point. And as much as I'm not angry, as in, like, I am angry, don't get me wrong, because I absolutely love refereeing and I can't do it anymore. But, like, I talked to the promoter about everything, and they did, you know, I will give them credit where it's due, where they did speak to me about, like, what they believe should have been done. And we compromised on a couple of things. They will obviously do whatever they want to do because it's their company, it's not mine. I'm very much a believer of education. As we said earlier, primary school trainee education is the only way that the world is going to get better, whether that's with regards to mental health, stigmatizing, or wrestling, and making people aware of things. And if it means that this situation educates enough people, I'm kind of okay with that. I don't know how that works with regards to, like, going forward. Honestly, I don't run a wrestling company. It's a really tricky situation for me to say no, neither performer should ever perform again. I know one of them will not be performing for RevPro in the future. I do support that, seeing the actions that were taken in the video. I don't know, because again, it sort of, what happened was not consensual in any form. Only the persons involved will know if it was for any malicious reason. I will never know. I can be told things, I'll never know. What they do is up to them. What people individually believe is up to them as well. Whether they wish to support that decision or not is up to them. That's not on me. I just know that what I've presented to everyone has been facts, and then I hope that people can then have their own independent thought, because I think that's the beauty of, you know, humanity in itself, is we can all have independent thought and justification in our own heads, and when presented with all the facts. So that is why I hope with presenting all the facts, that then whatever I believe is sort of moot. I hope that they will look at all the facts that are presented, whether that be video, written, etc., and then make their own decision on what they believe should have happened. If they believe it's the wrong decision, then refuse to support it moving forward, to show that, because that's the way that the business works. If they do support it, then continue to support promotions, the people involved, etc. With regards to that, though, I will say, like, I have been made aware of like some abhorrent things that were said on social media to the people involved, and whilst what they did was, yeah, bottom line wrong, I never agree with people like using obscene language or using bullying terms, or just, you know, being horrible about people. I think it should always be done with civility and facts. That's what I was saying. That's what I try to do. I try to be civil and use facts. I think a lot of the time it's very easy for people to forget that at the other end of that screen is a real human being who has real feelings, who may have done wrong but still has real feelings. And I think civility and being honest and using the facts is the best way forward. And I'm really thankful that so many people did use the facts and did do it in a civil manner, so that it was not just, you know, a screaming match of man screams at cloud and use obscene stuff like that. But yeah, sorry, I really tangented around that, didn't I?
Oh, you're right. In the company statement, they said that they'd like to work with you maybe in the future, even if you can't referee. Is that something you can see, or maybe other companies, or do you think you're done with kind of wrestling as a whole?
Honestly, at this moment in time, I don't fully know. I know that I love wrestling in itself, and I know I've been around it long enough to love the behind the scenes aspect of it as well as hate it at the same time. I do believe I've got a lot of skills that, you know, I have in my life that could be very applicable to wrestling and could work very well and be a great asset to anyone who wanted them. But to be honest with you, until at the minute anyway, like, my sort of focus is on my physiotherapy and making sure that I can sit in any position for more than 5 minutes without having like agonizing pain in my spine, or being able to lie down for more than 2 minutes without not being able to sleep for 12 hours because I've got that much pain in my shoulder and neck. That's kind of where I'm at. So yes, I can see myself in future being involved in wrestling. Whether I will or not yet, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair statement. I think, like I said before, it must have put a huge strain on your mental health, both in the immediate aftermath, you know, of the match, but also following your post again, because that would have obviously been a whole load of other emotions.
Yeah, I still haven't read all, like, I still literally haven't even read a timeline or mentions on my account yet, so that's going to be a whole whirlwind, I'm sure, at some point as well.
Yeah, that'll take a few days, I think, mate, to be honest. It was quite a lot. But, you know, I have to be honest, everything which I saw on social media was largely positive, you know, with backing you, condemning the people involved. You know, was there, how can I put this? Have other wrestlers or people from backstage reached out to you since, you know, like Rev Pro have got rid of the one guy and kind of acknowledged that what you said is factually correct, even though there was a video of it, which still baffles me that it took a week for them to decide. But, you know, there we go. But you know, as since then, has have you had people contact you like from backstage or other wrestlers or?
Backstage, yes. Other wrestlers, no. There's no.
Interesting.
That's a bit of a that's just like a slight white lie. I've had probably like 2 or 3 wrestlers contact me, who I would consider quite close friends anyway. So I don't know as much as they're wrestlers than friends.
Okay.
I've had a few promoters contact me who I've currently worked with at the time, and previously worked with, which meant the world to me. And a few like crew members and things like that. But yeah, no,
not really.
Disappointing. No, very few wrestlers who got in contact, and not that I'm saying every wrestler has to message anyone who gets hurt on a show or anything like that. Far from it. I'm just thinking that maybe with how prevalent this became in the world of wrestling, sometimes silence actually shows more than speaking about something. And I do genuinely believe that history will remember you for your lies and your silence, and they will forget you. History will remember those who did speak out of it and were a positive change in an industry. And I truly believe that. And I truly believe that if you didn't speak out about it and you have a reason for that, that maybe, you think I'm wrong or whatever, that's sort of a personal choice. But I genuinely believe history will remember you and history will think you're a dick.
Yes. So last question, because I just thought of this question actually.
Yeah, cool.
So do you think those people from like other wrestlers say, do you think they haven't contacted you because they, I don't know, think you've kind of made like a big deal of it or whatever, whatever their reason may be? Or do you think they haven't contacted you because you made it public?
Maybe a bit both. I don't know. I'm not them, thankfully.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I realise
no,
it's
I didn't mean that in a bad way at all.
tricky question.
It's just sort of like I think that as a whole, like we talked earlier about this whole idea. Well, I ranted on earlier about like how there is this whole like the boys.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of what I was getting.
Yeah, and this mentality where they all work together, and I think that definitely had a big impact on it. It's very interesting to me to see how many people would talk out about it had it been the opposite way around, as in like had a wrestler come under this situation as opposed to a referee, and had
well,
without being maybe too sort of tongue-in-cheek, let's be honest about it. If you criticize, if you don't talk about, if you criticized potentially the promotion involved or any of the wrestlers involved, they have a lot more influence in that industry than I will have, whether that be financially or with connections or anything like that. And I'm not saying that as a negative to the performers and promotion, in the sense of that people won't speak out because they are who they are and stuff like that. I'm saying that's a negative to the people themselves. Grow a backbone. If you truly think that you want to, if not necessarily specific to my situation, but if you want to work in a environment that maybe did not, represent your ideals and things like that, and actually follow basic welfare checks and things like that, is that really a place you want to work? And I'm not saying this about Rev Pro or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, literally, like, I will call out what I think is wrong because I think we have a moral obligation to do that because that's how things change. Would you, so for example, say the same incident, exactly the same incident with exactly the same footage and exactly the same statements from the promotion had happened at a promotion much smaller and who ran much fewer shows and with performers who had much less experience and connections within wrestling. does the same level of silence from performers who are wrestlers still happen? In my opinion, no, it doesn't. That's my opinion. That's not a fact. That's a conjecture, and it's purely a conjecture from me. But that's something that I believe. If someone can prove me wrong factually, please do. Actually, no, please don't, because I don't want this ever to happen again to anyone. So I'd rather not have it in the same situation. But yeah, call me out for it. Send me a message.
It's interesting though, because I think it was last year or maybe the year before. Rosemary and I think it was Sexy Star had a kind of thing where Sexy Star injured Rosemary by doing some legitimate moves.
Yeah, I remember something.
She was slammed like by everybody, you know, and rightly so. Don't get me wrong. So why was it? You know, it happened with these two wrestlers. Obviously, you know, they're very well-known names, the pair of them, but it was still a situation where, yes, it was in a match, but it was not a planned spot. She didn't have the consent to do the move, and ended up injuring Rosemary. And if my memory serves me correctly, I'm sure she had quite a substantial injury.
Yeah, I'm not fully sure about that situation. I genuinely can't remember much about it. I mean, it's tricky when you say within the context of a match, because obviously, like, without drawing back like too much of the smoke and illusion, like, it's very rare that every single moment of every single performance in the match will be scripted and worked out. However, there is that level of trust and professionalism involved that means that don't be a dick and don't take liberties with people physically. And from what I remember, from what I remember, and it's conjecture because I don't have many of the facts for it, is that liberties were taken in that situation that should not have been. So yeah, I agree. It's and that's the thing, like, stuff like that gets called out, and I don't know if it's happened again since. Hopefully it hasn't, like, as in, like, performers taking liberties with each other, with wrestlers, etc., for any reason. I don't know, genuinely, because but it's one of those things, like, if it happens once, you know, shame on the person who did it. If it happens twice, shame on the industry for not stopping it again. Because that's the obligation they should have. They should be able, that should not happen. You know, sometimes it does have to happen once for it to stop, but if it happens a second time, then ooh, girl, you've got to make sure that you stop it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, with some education and some awareness, this type of thing will never happen again. You know, and let's be blatantly honest, it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
No, I agree.
Unfortunately, it did, especially for you, because you're now dealing with the aftermath, the injuries, and such, and not able to referee wrestling, which is something which you really enjoyed, and you know were doing well at by all accounts.
I mean, it sucks, but like at the end of the day, like I'm kind of at this point now, and I sort of got to it quite quickly. Of like, at the end of the day, what's happened has happened, and I can't change it. There's no point me being bitter and jaded about it, and no posts on social media, no talking to you now is in any form of from a bitter, jaded perspective. It's just simply being honest and, you know, calling out the wrongdoing and calling out what's not right and shouldn't happen. And, you know, I'm an optimistic person. I'm trying to be a positive person and quite upbeat and friendly and, you know, quite happy. And, you know, as much I could wallow in self-pity and lock myself away for the next 6 months as I recover and stuff like that, until I get back to anywhere near the level of physical well-being I was before. But there's no point in doing that. It's not going to achieve anything. It's not going to make me feel better or anything like that. You know, I've got to look at it on a not positively in the sense of like, yay, this happened, but like I've got to look positively and like, right, okay, well, this has happened. What can I do about it? Okay, well, I have these skills that I have that I could potentially get involved in wrestling again if I wanted to. I have, you know, I have a full-time job now that I can put my focus on and learn new things with that and apply a different trade that I've not, you know, done in a long time / ever really. I can spend more time at the weekends with my lovely 3 spaniels that I've got, and It's just trying to take something that's very, very negative that could be very easily taken as a bitter, jaded, you know, screw everything, why me? But there's no point. It's not going to get me anywhere.
Got to look forward, always.
Damn right. That's why our eyes are at the front of our heads.
Indeed. So, thank you, mate, for being so open and honest. And I know it's not difficult. I know it's been like a horrific few weeks for you, and I appreciate you being willing to talk to me about it. And I've had a lot of fun talking to you. Obviously, the last part was not as fun, but I appreciate you speaking about it, and I appreciate like the rest of the show was loads of fun. I had a good time.
Anytime, yeah, me too.
Tell the people where they can find you on social media, even though you're not using the account at the moment, are you?
Social media. Literally, just on the Twitter machine at the minute. I have an Instagram, but I'm really bad, and I think I've forgotten the password. So it's just Aaren Wilde at AAREN, because I'm weird. WILDE. That's on the Twitter machine. I post memes, dogs, bit of environmental stuff. So if you think climate change is a myth, don't follow me. Yeah, it's a good fun time.
Indeed. And you can follow us on Twitter at ACEcast_nation, Facebook.com/ACEcastNation. And give the video a thumbs up. Tell us what you thought.
That is my doodle from the past video.
And you should put that on eBay now.
Signed and delivered. And yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaren, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.